Hello, a very good evening and namaste, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, welcoming all of you to the second edition of the Energize Awards. The Energize Awards have been instituted to recognize and reward organizations who have displayed excellence and innovation in their areas of operations, be it power generation, transmission and distribution, or EPC in the power sector. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, it's time for us to kickstart with the proceedings for the evening with a panel discussion on outlook for the Indian power sector. So first up, moderating this panel is Mr. Naresh Raisinghani, CEO and Executive Director of our Knowledge Partners, the Breakthrough Management Group. Is also inviting our first panelist, Mr. Shiv Shukla, President and CEO, Abengoa Solar India. Our next panelist is Mr. Bikesh Ogra, President, Solar Business at Sterling and Wilson Limited. And finally, yes, introducing and inviting our last panelist for this panel discussion, Mr. Siddharth Mehta, CEO of India Power. Yes, once again, welcoming all our dignitaries on stage, and yes, requesting Mr. Raisinghani to please take over the proceedings. So,
looking at this world, which is about 7 billion people, interestingly, more than 1.4 billion do not receive electricity. And even more interesting is that 300 million out of this are in India itself. For a country which is so power hungry, wanting to really pace up its GDP, what do you think have been some of the challenges which have really held back India in trying to really get the power what it is wanting?
See, India, as we all know, is blessed with the quality of sunshine that is equivalent to none, mostly equivalent to none across the globe. Have we been able to effectively harness it? I would say surely no. What are the challenges, as you asked? So I look at it from a four-pronged perspective. The challenges lie in the fact that what is the roadmap? The challenges lie in the fact what are the policies driving that roadmap? The challenges also lie what are the gestation periods, as well as the infrastructure supporting all these three other factors. So we need to have a clear understanding and a roadmap wherein for solar, we're talking about a 20 gigawatt in the next 5 years. So we need to clearly have a roadmap drawn wherein a 20 gigawatt in multiples of 5 gigawatt each looks a very daunting and uphill task, needs to be created as a roadmap. Now, how do policies support this? And until unless you have sustainable policies to support this roadmap, I don't think 20 gigawatt is an easy task. Now, the biggest problem that I see as a solar development come EPC guy is the misalignment in the central and state policies. We also have a policy difference in terms of understanding in each state if we want to go for an open access, if we want to go for a cross-subsidy reduction. So these are all complications which we feel have to be mitigated, addressed. And last but not the least, and if you all have all of these three factors in place, is the fact that how sturdy and resilient and robust is your grid, which unfortunately, we are having a very, very archaic grid in place today. Land acquisition is another major challenge, and now with the recent, land acquisition bill, it's become all the more problematic. So once we have a fix on all these factors, I think I can only tell from my perspective, yes, we can really proliferate the business on the solar side of it, and I'm sure this is true for the other sectors, power sectors also.
Just to extend what Bikesh said about the situation in the solar PV particularly, I think there are a couple of, I would say, bad indicators and good indicators. I would say that we have been talking to the authorities and ministry and all, and one big question was about the enforceability of these RPUs. In fact, now the thinking process is going a bit different, and the government is thinking to come out with, rather than RPOs, RGOs, which is renewable generation obligation. The idea would be that if you are a generator, if you are having a coal-based power plants of, let's say, 2000 megawatt, or even a UMPP of 4000 megawatt size, Now for you to accommodate about a 50 to 100 megawatt of solar into your design and into your entire project will not upset your economics so badly that the tariff will go high.
Absolutely.
Now, slightly digressing from, let's say, the renewables, I would also like to touch upon another clean source of this electricity, which is the gas. I think we all are aware about the problems in the gas sector, and it has been more of a problem of availability of the feed, the fuel, rather than the plants itself.
Correct.
In fact, today I think almost about, if I remember correctly, more than 20 to, I mean somewhere in the range of 20 to 40,000 megawatts of assets are stranded because of non-availability of the gas. So just to sum up that, these are some of the problems basically when we think about the cleaner energy.
Let me give my thoughts as a utility person. The issue is, let's look at each of the sectors. Let's look at the generation. There are, in the generation sector, if you have read today, coal mines are operating at less than the efficient parameters. Last quarter, 5% reduction in the Coal India reduces the generation by 2000 megawatt. Second issue is the quality of coal. The quality of coal, there must be a monitoring mechanism for the quality of coal. Third, which is equally important, India has a very large reserve of coal. We are not able to mine these coals due to lack of technology. Therefore, we need to bring in quick technologies in order to mine this coal. Our reserves are far better than even Indonesia. And 39,000 crore was our bill 5 years ago. Today our import coal is going to 100,000 bill. And if you bring energy at $10, you will have 200, 300,000 crores worth of imports. Which consumer will be able to pay today at that rate?
Very interesting thoughts across all. I have a radical question for this group. For solving some of these issues, should the large structural change move towards higher central control? Should it continue with a good balance with state? Or should it largely be privatized, which will create high efficiencies across the whole value chain?
The major issue today, according to me, seems to be implementation. Bringing in the right people and the right expertise and utilizing this right expertise across the private sector and the public sector, utilizing the funds which are available and bringing in the additional capex which is required, then improving the sector together would be a way forward. Otherwise you just cannot start doing privatization of the entire area, because there will be resistance from the employees, from everybody. Therefore, you need to bring in a public-private partnership on a certain platform where various schemes can be done.
I will agree to him to a very large extent, but I'll slightly diverge, and I'll tell you the reason why I agree and why I diverge with his views. When he's talking about the funds being in place, and the one which immediately comes to my mind is the Clean Energy Fund. It's a bizarre scenario. Today, the fund has almost, and it's something which is not there in the public domain, and that's another irony with this fund. They say that it has, some people say it's got 40,000 crores, and some people say it's 16,000 crores. Now that's unutilized money from past 3 years. Unbelievable. Means it's so, and the actual intent of the fund is to create a research and development, create innovation, adopt cleaner technologies. And unfortunately, what it is being used as is being given to understand it becomes a bridge between the projects which are regular run-of-the-mill projects and which have a budget overshoot. It acts as a bridge rather than the actual intent of creating those research and development pilot projects. Now, this is the irony where we face, wherein you have funds and you're not able to effectively implement, and execute those funds. We have places wherein people are wanting to come in with investments. They are wanting to pump in money. But because of the haze and mist that surrounds various policies, and I'm not wanting to mention any specific state or the center, the ambiguities lying with the policies, creates a lot of deterrence, in those investors.
I
which you
think
touched
the issue again comes back, if we analyze it why economically, why these projects are not happening. I mean, the situation today is that the prices or the tariffs, when they are bid out, it's really very, very aggressive bidding. People the companies will cut throat of each other and bid a very low price. And they may not be able to build the, the capacities at that price. Why is this happening? This is basically like what we are doing is we are not willing to pay the price which it needs to be paid, We don't want to pay a higher price. If we don't want to pay a higher price, how do we expect that somebody will invest his money into all this? Why will somebody come up? Why will he not invest the money into some, let's say, refinery or some other
Absolutely.
energy resource or high tech like pharmaceuticals? And I think the most of the issues, as we have been discussing, have been lying around with the availability of the fuel, clear-cut policies to allocate, improving the availability of the fuel in terms of efficiency of the taking out the coal or the gas from the bottom of the earth to the top and getting it to the proper place. And what will happen, what we need is that investments to happen in all these, we need to be ready to pay a price. If there was an industry where the return was very good, there is no doubt that the people will not invest.
Right.
And transmission lines is a very clear-cut case.
Correct.
Because at today there are a lot of PPP projects happening on the transmission side, fine. Why is the focus not there on the DISCOMs? Because for the DISCOMs to get their revenue out of the customer is a huge challenge. How do you collect your money? So I think culturally, nationally, we have to, our own inside within me, okay, I'm willing to pay a price if I get a good. Another idea may be to segregate the feeders into different zones where you have where you can get 24/7 quality supply of the electricity. You will be paying higher price. Some of the other measures could be like moving to the day of time pricing on the electricity. So
Partly I agree, partly and 90% I disagree. Partly I agree because if it is an urban area, people will pay. People are willing to pay for reliability of supply, people are willing to pay for good supply, people want 10 paisa bada diya, 50 paisa bada diya, people are willing to pay. But if you go in rural areas, 15 paise increase will not get through either to the state or the regulator or by anybody. There is a huge resistance even politically, and they are saying आप लगाओ टेक्नोलॉजी, हम कहाँ मना करते हैं, आप स्मार्ट मीटर लगाओ, हमारे से पैसा मत. These are consumers' reality today. Whether we discuss and we deliberate and we say that I will bring this and I will get you and you please pay, but the reality there are various compulsions including political for the tariff to be increased. Why regulatory assets are being created? Because he is not able to increase the tariff. The tariff is, he knows the average cost of supply is this much. Still he would not want to increase the tariff because there are compulsions and we have to live with these compulsions. We cannot go away without these compulsions. No matter what we do in Indian environment, a tariff going beyond 5 rupees and 6 rupees and 7 rupees is only a dream and not going to be a reality in the next few years to come. Because there will be a huge outcry, there will be people outcry who will have to be taken care of, people will resist, people will not be able to pay.
now I think this is where the disconnect is.
I think
That's
I
what
think
I
this
was
is the
saying,
last
that
point.
as a nation, we need to have that mentality of paying for it. On one hand, you want it, but you want it for free. Who is going to give you?
No, I think the classical
What is the solution for
point
this?
that comes to my mind and to answer his question or his concern is the fact that today with diesel, till about a year and a half back, we always used to have a lot of apprehensions in terms of deregulating
Right.
the diesel prices. But eventually the way it was systematically implemented, today it was cushioned. The blows were cushioned very cleverly and intelligently. And I'm saying today DISCOMs, when you talk about the revamp on the DISCOM side, you have to adopt the same philosophy in terms of allowing them slightly freer hand.
Yeah.
We have to take some radical
That's
steps,
right.
some radical decisions.
For the team, it would have been a very, very interesting debate and providing several thoughts. But excellent ideas, which can all be integrated together And the timings can be questioned, but it can be integrated. Starting from efficiency at the production, allowing, encouraging generation even in the non-renewables, I mean in the renewables, in solar and others can tremendously make a change. Creating mechanisms of how the renewables can be integrated with the regular one so that the pricings can be absorbed. Trying to look at the T&D and making it efficient, even trying to use public-private partnerships or even some amount of privatization. And the most interesting part, which created a very interesting debate, is to really move towards the free economy and say, pay money for what you're consuming.
Yeah.
We won't make it inefficient, we will make it efficient, but there is a price to pay so that we can also live
Correct.
and do something about
Exactly.
it, right? So thank you very, very
Thanks a
much,
lot. Thank you.
gentlemen. I hope all of you have enjoyed the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's truly my honor to invite our chief guest for this evening on stage. Thus, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming on stage Shri Ajoy Mehta, Managing Director of Mahadiscom and Energy Secretary, Government of Maharashtra on stage, as I request him to deliver the keynote address for this evening.
Good evening, everybody. To start with, I asked Mr. Talwar, what is it that you want me to speak on? And he says he wants me to speak on the outlook of the power sector in India. First and foremost, people are now saying, please give us simple solutions to simple problems. All these complicated things that we discuss in conferences, papers are written. I think the largest number of technical magazines come out in the power sector. Largest number of conferences are held. Highest number of regulations have been made. First thing, the first outlook is people now say, please give me power 24/7. That is the first thing. Instead of adding generation, please look at fuel. Your generation is down to just 60% of your capacity, simply because there is no coal. Second, consumer is fed up of your promises. Free and cheap power is not the reality. It is not happening. Now, when you talk of giving power, the next thing, and when you talk of tariffs and you talk of rationalization of tariffs, ये सब जो खेल चल रहा है कि एग्रीकल्चर को सस्ता दे देना, फिर कंज्यूमर ये सस्ता दे दो, फिर उसको महंगा दे दो, all this has to stop. Let us very clear, let everybody pay the bill that he is supposed to pay. If you want to give him a subsidy because he is a poor man or that sector is important to you, please give him a direct subsidy. Don't make power sector give it. But next, once you start saying that people must pay for what they are getting, then please also remember people must also get the service for what they are paying. Last issue, and I am now making it a point to touch this issue everywhere, is renewable energy. What is its potential and where it can go? I am surprised at conferences I am going and people are saying पूरा बॉम्बे शहर हम renewable पे चला देंगे, कोई हवाई जहाज उड़ाने वाला renewable पे. भाई सच बोलना शुरू करो. Renewable is okay, it is at the margins, fair enough, let's encourage it. It's not the backbone and it's not becoming the backbone so soon. And if you want to do research in renewable, please do it at somebody else's cost, not at the cost of this poor consumer जो सिर्फ सादा कह रहा है कि भाई 24/7 पावर दीजिए, मेरे घर का इक्विपमेंट चले, शाम को बच्चे पढ़ सकें और छोटे मोटे मैं काम कर सकूं. That is his only demand. Let's see if we can fulfill that. Rest of it is not taking us anywhere. Thank you so much. Thank you for this patient hearing. Sorry for being a little aggressive about these issues, but one has started feeling very strongly about this as I grow older. Thank you once more.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your very honest and thought-provoking thoughts right here with us. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to take this evening to the next level of excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to move on to what all our nominees have been waiting for, and that, of course,